sagrajatam sahagana raghunathanvitam tam sajivam sadvaitam savadutam parijana sahitam Krishna chaitanya devam Shri Radha Krishna padan sahagan lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachyata Deshatadine. So we'll be discussing today from a very, very special book, that is the crest jewel of all literature, and in particular all the spiritual and Vedic literature. And that is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And to speak this message or this very important conclusion so that the human race can achieve perfection, the Supreme Lord had to take the position of a charioteer. Very interesting. He takes the position of a charioteer. Krishna becomes the charioteer of Arjuna. And in the midst of the battlefield, he spoke the Vedic wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. Why? Because Bhagavad Gita will clarify the confusion, the bewilderment, the chaos which the human race will face in the age of Kali. We see in our hearts there is always a conflict. There is a constant conflict as to what is right and what we should do and what we should do. So this confusion and conflict can be completely eradicated with the wisdom and learning of Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita gives direction, specific guidance to perfect this human form of life. So Gita Sugita Kartavya. Gita teaches us to perform our duty. Our duty in this human form of life. And there is no need to approach any other scripture or any other literature. Why? Because it is Yaswayam Padmanabhasya. It is flowing directly from the lotus mouth, Mukha Padma Vinishita of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is spoken directly by Krishna, and by attentive and regular hearing and reading of Bhagavad Gita, one can find all solutions to all problems in human existence. So this is the torchlight of wisdom. Bhagavad Gita is the torchlight of wisdom, and these are for practical application in Kali Yuga. Krishna specifically spoke Bhagavad Gita not for any other yuga. He spoke it for this age, Kali Yuga, which is called as the Iron Age. So we see so far that in this chapter, today I'll continue from verse number 35. So before this, there has been a lot of discussion. Krishna has spoken on primarily on how to focus and concentrate one's mind. So this chapter is entitled Dhyan Yoga. Dhyan means to be able to focus, to meditate, and not allow the deviation and distraction of the mind. So Krishna has given the process, and the process is of Ashtanga Yoga. How to mechanically control the mind and fix it without any variation or deviation. So Arjuna, after hearing this process of Ashtanga Yoga, which is of mechanically controlling the mind and senses to engage in the eightfold process of mysticism, Arjuna feels that it is impractical and it is impossible. So Arjuna does not agree or approve of practicing this process of Ashtanga Yoga. So we saw in the 33rd and 34th verse, Arjuna expressed his inability. In the 33rd verse, Arjuna said, "O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized." So from where Krishna summarized this system of yoga? From verse number 11. From verse number 11, Krishna began to speak of this process of Ashtanga Yoga from Suchau Desha Pratisthapya, that to practice this yoga, one should be in a stipulated place. And what he has to do, he has to purify his heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities. And further, Krishna said that one should be able to be completely free from sex life. He should have an unagitated mind, devoid of fear. So many regulations and impositions. So Arjuna feels that it is impossible, it is impractical to apply and practice this process of yoga. So in the 33rd verse, he said that the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. So the characteristic of mind is being revealed here in this section of Bhagavad Gita, that the mind will remain restless and unsteady. So this is a good news for all of us, that we are not the only one who is disturbed by mind. Whoever exists in this world, his mind is unsteady and he will experience restlessness, because that is the very characteristics, that is the very nature of the mind. Not only that, further Arjuna analyzes in the 34th verse, he says that chanchalam hi manaḥ Krishna, that the mind is flickering. Chanchalam means it is flickering. And not only it is flickering, it is pramathi. It is very easily agitated. It is very easily disturbed. And when it is disturbed, it depicts, it expresses a lot of force, which is balvat. That strong force is there. And it is durnigrahaṁ. The durnigrahaṁ means that it does not want to change. It remains fixed in trying to fulfill what the mind desires. So it is durnigrahaṁ. And Arjuna says, for me, To control the mind is much more difficult than to control the raging wind. He says, tasyaham nigraham manne vayu revata pushpa. It is even more difficult for me to control the mind. Rather, I can control the wind. How can one control the wind? Can one see the wind? No. But Arjuna had the prowess. Arjuna, as an expert archer, he had such capability that he could shoot arrows, and the arrows would be so close to each other, the network of arrows would be so close to each other, that even the wind would not pass. So Arjuna could, in a way, stop the flow of wind by his arrows. But he says to stop the restlessness of the mind, the agitation of the mind, to be able to subdue and overcome the strength of the mind is much more difficult. So please see the gravity of what Arjuna is speaking. Arjuna has many, many special credits. He is a person whose sense control is of the highest order. His discipline is of perfection. But still he feels that it is so impractical and so difficult to control the mind. So what to speak of any ordinary or common person? So let us see how Krishna responds. What Krishna does. So far we have seen initially when Arjuna was putting an argument, Krishna used to dismiss it or completely demolish it. But here we see Krishna gives a completely different response. So this is from 35th verse. śrī-bhagavān uvāca asaṁśayaṁ mahā-bāho mano durnigraham calam abhyāsena tu kaunteya vairāgyeṇa cha gṛhyate. So after Arjuna has put forth this question to Krishna, where Arjuna has spoken his heart, and Arjuna has put forth the situation that why it is not possible for him to follow. This is very, very significant, that we should learn from Arjuna that whenever we feel difficulty or whenever we face some situation which is beyond our comprehension and control, we should not just drop it or leave it. What we should do, we should consult. And Arjuna is consulting with his authority, Krishna. So Krishna says, asaṁśayaṁ mahā-bāho. Krishna is saying that without doubt, Arjuna is mahā-bāho. Mahā-bāho means mighty arm. What is the might of his arm? That he can even control the raging wind. He can subdue his formidable foes, his enemies. So why Krishna says you are mahā-bāho? And why he says asaṁśayaṁ? Asaṁśayaṁ is that without a doubt, Arjuna, what you are speaking is true. Why? Because mano durnigraham calam. Because the nature of the mind is, it is, nigraha means to control or to overcome. You see, this word has come in the previous verse where Arjuna is submitting that tasyaham nigraham mano. That I feel it is very difficult to subdue or overcome the mind. And Krishna is not only approving it, Krishna is saying it is not just nigraham. Krishna says it is durnigraham. Not only it is difficult, Krishna says it is extremely difficult to subdue or overcome the forces of mind. Why? Because the mind is so forceful. It has such a force. And where is the force of the mind? Is it outside? It is within. The force of mind is felt when we do not agree or abide by the mind's dictation. So the mind forces us. The mind makes us kneel down, bow down, and agree to what it desires and demands. That force is invisible. No one else can see it. Can anyone else see? What is the force of mind which compels us inside? But the person who is experiencing it, he cannot be relieved of it. So Krishna is saying it is durnigraham and it is calam. Calam means it is restless, flickering. So that is the nature of the mind, Arjuna. Then what to do? Then to remain a committed student or slave of the mind? Krishna does not approve that. Krishna gives the solution. In the second line of the verse, Krishna gives the practical solution, the positive engagement, and how to be able to overcome this very formidable force of mind. He says by abhyāsena to kaunteya, by proper practice. Abhyas. Abhyas means practice. So abhyāsena to kaunteya. Why he is saying kaunteya? Because Arjuna is the son of Kuntī Devi. And Kuntī Devi is a lady who in her life has seen many, many reverses, many tragedies and tribulations. But she remained determined to overcome them all. And Arjuna is her son. And Kuntī Devi is also connected to Krishna. She is the sister of Krishna's father. So she is the aunt of Krishna. So Krishna is, in a way, encouraging Arjuna to remain determined. And where the determination has to be in abhyas, in practice. So if one has to practice, what is the most essential thing in practice is determination. By determination, one can practice. And if one lacks determination, one cannot even practice. So how to overcome the force, the invisible, irresistible force of the mind is by proper practice. And then Krishna also says, vairāgyeṇa ca gṛhyate. And also by detachment. By detachment. So by practice and by detachment, what will be the result? Gṛhyate. Gṛhyate means that the mind will become controlled. The controller will become controlled. The master will become servant. Let us see the translation. Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa said, O mighty armed son of Kuntī, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind. Because that is the characteristic, that is the nature of the mind. Like, you see, an example can be given of water. What is the characteristic of water? It is always liquid. But the same water, if you take it to an abnormal temperature, you take it in the minus framework, -5, -10, what will happen? The property of the water from liquid will convert to solid. It will become ice. And if the same water, if you expose it to a higher temperature, you take it to 100 degrees, what will happen? It will convert into vapor. But still the essential characteristic does not change. Even if you convert the water to ice, and when the ice comes in the normal temperature, what happens? It again converts back to water. Even vapor, when it comes into the normal temperature, the vapor converts back to water. So the essential characteristic is never lost. So please try to understand. It's a very deep point. So all this yoga practice of trying to externally control the mind is completely useless. Because as soon as the normal situation will come, the mind will become like water. It is actually water. It will again from ice, it will convert to water, and from vapor also it will convert to water. It will remain the same. Artificially for some time, you may be able to subdue it or control it by mechanical method. But it will not work because the two characteristic remains the same. That it is restless, it is obstinate, and it cannot be overcome. So Krishna is saying that if you want to make a solution to this problem, what you have to do, you have to practice what I tell you, and practice has to be with determination, and you have to be detached. So what is this practice and detachment? These are the tools or the technique of how to control the mind, the spiritual technique, the power of Krishna's recommendation or direction is much more powerful than the force of the mind. So, supposingly, you have to deal with some force which is not favorable to you. Supposingly, we have a conflict, like we have a conflict, a long-standing conflict with one of our neighbors. Both the country got independence together, and since independence, there has been a conflict. And that conflict cannot be resolved because they are always thinking that they are no less. They are thinking that they are even more. So how to curb and control the enemy? You have alliance with someone who's more powerful than you. Getting my point? Like for instance, you have alliance with one of the superpower. And that alliance recommends that if there is any war or if there is any aggression from the other side, we will support the Indian side. So what will be the result? That the enemy will not be able to take any aggressive decision. I will not be able to do anything which is in the disinterest, because it will always be fearful of the consequences. So similarly, on our own, we have no resource to curb and control the mind. But here the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself is giving the recommendation. He is himself giving the empowerment. He is himself giving this process how to apply. And if we apply, the result will come. Another example to show, like someone is having a chronic disease. You know, chronic disease, something which has existed for a long period of time. So if someone is having a chronic disease, normally what happens is the patient thinks that he cannot be cured. He would have tried one or two physicians or doctors or experts, but nothing is working on it. But if the disease, which is very serious and has remained chronic for a long-standing time, like it can be like cancer, or it can be like arthritis, or even diabetes, or blood pressure, or cholesterol. But if it is diagnosed properly, and if the right medicine is administered, if the proper medicine is administered by the expert physician, and his prescription is applied repeatedly for a long time, what is the result? Gradually, the disease gets cured. Have you experienced or not? I've experienced in so many places. So similarly, the mind can be controlled by the repeated practice, by the direction given by Krishna, by the constant application of the process which Krishna is recommending here, and that is abhyāsena. So what is to be practiced? What Krishna is recommending here. And the second aspect is vairāgyeṇa. Vairāgyeṇa means disassociation. Disassociation from all that takes the mind away from Krishna. But in particular, all the sense objects or the illusionary pleasure. Actually, there is no pleasure, it is suffering. But there is an illusion, there is a deep illusion about such a pleasure. So, how the mind can be controlled? Abhyāsa vairāgyeṇa tan nirodha. By the dual process of practicing what is recommended and disassociating from all that which is prohibited. Like, if we go to a doctor also, the doctor prescribes you medicines to cure the disease, but he also gives you some prohibition, isn't it? If somebody is having some cold, so he will recommend some medicines. But also he will recommend that please do not sleep in AC. Please do not drink cold water. And if you want to get cured, you have to apply both. Just by taking medicine and not applying to the prohibition, the medicine will not work. In normal course, we can see that. So similarly, Krishna is recommending here both. That one has to have practice, and the other part is that one has to become detached or disassociate from certain things. Okay. So we will see from Srila Prabhupada's purpose that what is the practical aspect of this abhyasa and what is the recommendation for vairāgya or disassociation or detachment. Okay, so far with me, this verse is clear. What Krishna is recommending, very powerful process Krishna is recommending. This process is more powerful than the power of the mind, of the uncontrolled mind. So if we apply the process, there is invariably going to be only one result, that the mind will become pure and the mind will become controlled. Another very important understanding or the secret of controlling the mind is to purify the mind. Unless and until the mind is purified, there is no possibility of controlling the mind. Like example is given that if somebody wants to enjoy the ride of a horse, and if someone catches a wild horse from the forest, can he enjoy the ride on the horse? Is it possible? No. What has to happen? The horse has to be trained, and then one can enjoy. So similarly, to curb and control the mind, first the mind has to be purified. Purified by certain practices. And that practices constitute the foundational element of abhyasa. So unless and until the mind becomes pure and mind becomes free from all the impurities which it has in the form of misconceptions or wrong conceptions or false conceptions, it will not align. It will not align to the positive part. So let us see what Srila Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport. So Prabhupada says the difficulty of controlling the obstinate mind, as expressed by Arjuna. Arjuna said that this is impractical and endurable. So it is accepted. Krishna did not disapprove it, like in the previous chapters. But here Krishna is accepting it. But at the same time, it is not so that the problem is there and the problem is grave. So what we can do? We can do nothing about it. No. Bhagavad Gita gives a very specific and a very systematic solution to whatever be the problem. There is no problem in the human race which is not addressed in Bhagavad Gita. There may be around 7 billion population of humans in the planet Earth. The 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita are to the point, precise, perfect to resolve the problem of everything. So Krishna is giving the definite solution, the powerful solution, even after the acceptance that the difficulty of the controlling of the mind. So, but at the same time, he suggests that by practice and detachment, it is possible. Abhyāsena tu kaunteya, vairāgyeṇa cha gṛhyate. And then Prabhupada raises the question that what is that practice? If the mind can be curbed, if the mind can be trained, or if the mind can be tamed by practice, then what is that practice? What one needs to practice? So Prabhupada says that in the present age, no one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in the sacred place. So that is what was recommended in this process of Ashtanga Yoga or Dhyana Yoga. Suchaudesha Pratisthapya. This is from where Krishna began. Focusing the mind on Supersoul and restraining the senses and mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone. So all these stages are there. If one wants to practice perfection in Ashtanga Yoga, so it is not possible. It is not practical in today's age, in DNA's age. But, however, that may seem to be impractical or unendurable, but there is something which is very practical and very much easily obtainable. And what is that? That is the practice of Krishna consciousness. When one practices the process of Krishna consciousness. However, one engages in 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. So instead of taking the difficult path of controlling the mind and senses and controlling the breathing process, remaining in a secluded place, very strictly observing celibacy, and so on and so forth. It is like going to a top floor via the stairs. Somehow today we went. In Sonika's house, when we reached there, the electricity was not there. And she is on the 12th floor. So we waited for some time, but time is precious. So we decided, okay, let us, go through the stairs. By Krishna's grace, we were testing whether how old we have become, whether we'll be able to reach or not. We reached, but not possible to go every time and come back. But if you have an elevator, what you need to do? When we came down, it was so simple. You just have to step in and push the button. And the car, the lift is also for the car. It moves automatically. You don't have to do anything. It moves on its own. The mechanism is perfectly aligned and it works. So similarly, the staircase method is the mechanical process of Ashtanga Yoga. And the elevator process is the process of Krishna consciousness. And how to practice Krishna consciousness? Prabhupada is specifically mentioning here by the 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. What are the 9 types of devotional service? So many times we have discussed about it. It begins from Shravanam, hearing about Krishna. Kirtanam. Kirtanam is glorifying. So what we are doing? We are practically engaging in this 2 acts. You all are hearing. You are hearing from whom? We are hearing from Krishna, from Bhagavad Gita. That is called Shravanam. To hear from the Supreme Personality of Godhead about His name, form, paraphernalia, pastimes, His abode, his devotees. That is all the powerful process of Shravana. You see, in our life, if you analyze, what is the source of receiving maximum knowledge in our life? It is through Shravana. A child, when he is born, he starts to gain knowledge of this material world, of his family, and so on and so forth, so many things. But he has not begun to go into school. So where is he gaining this knowledge from? Just by hearing. Hearing. So the powerful process of hearing, Shravanam, Kirtanam, and when one is doing both, Shravanam, when he is hearing and when he is glorifying, like you are hearing and I am trying to glorify Krishna, that is called Kirtanam. Then there is Smaranam. Smarana means remembrance. Or it also means meditation on the Lord. Focus on the Supersoul. So this topic talks about Smaranam, or it is called Dhyanam, which is meditative focus on the Supreme Lord. But how it can happen? When the Shravanam and Kirtanam is not there, how can mechanically one can come to the position of Smaranam? Like unless and until one passes his high school, he passes his graduation, how can he be admitted into PhD? So Prabhupada is saying here that the process is not mechanical, which is mentioned above, but the process is practical of engaging in devotional service, beginning with Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, then Pad Sevanam, Dasyam, Vandanam, Arjanam, Sakhyam, and Atmanivedanam. So all these processes, what is the power of this process? Is one engages in devotional service. The Prabhupada is saying here, the one engages in 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. So by engagement in devotional service, so this word, 2 words are very prominent. Like Prabhupada said, that this Ashtanga Yoga process is not practical, but by Krishna consciousness. So we have discussed so many times what is Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness means to know who is Krishna and to also know who am I. And to be also cognizant of what is my connection or what is my relation with Krishna. So that is Krishna consciousness. In our present state, we are not Krishna conscious. We are Krishna unconscious. And what are we conscious about? We are self-conscious. Self meaning not the soul. The self is misidentified either with the mind. Most of the time we are on the mental platform because we identify with the mind, or we identify ourselves with the mind. So when one goes beyond this mental and bodily platform and one connects to the spiritual platform and one connects with Krishna, then one is Krishna conscious. So, and what does the person in Krishna consciousness do? He engages in devotional service. Or here Prabhupada says is 9 types of devotional practices of service to the Lord. So both are must. To the extent one is Krishna conscious, one can engage in devotional service. And to the extent one is engaged in devotional service, one can become Krishna conscious. Not otherwise. Not otherwise. So the first and foremost of such devotional engagement is hearing about Krishna. So the preliminary process or the preliminary step, or the first step is to hear about Krishna. It seems to be very simple. It is simple. But still, it is not practiced. You see, in today's session, how many are hearing? My monitor shows 6 participants, including me. How many are hearing? And in spiritual scientist, Ganesh, how many you have enrolled? How many are there? More than 200, 300? How many are there?
346 Prabhuji subscribers.
I cannot hear you.
346 Prabhuji. 346.
Out of 346, hardly 6 are here. Others are engaged in some other activities. But it's not easy. Why it is not easy? Because one is not determined to practice. What is required is determination. And also conviction is required. We should be convinced to practice what Krishna is speaking. Then success is sure. And if we try anything else, or if we keep experimenting, then only time will be lost, opportunity will be lost, and life will be over. And there will be no realization and no relief from the prickings of the mind. So the very powerful process of hearing is recommended here. The first and the foremost of such devotional engagement is hearing about Krishna. And from whom one has to hear? One has to hear from Krishna and his authorized representative. Who are the authorized representative? Like if you go to a bank, there are many kinds of bank. But to which bank do you want your hard-earned money to be deposited? Do you go to any street side bank? No. You only go to that bank which is authorized by the RBI, by the Reserve Bank of India. Because then you feel safe that your deposit, your money, your asset will not be, exploited by someone else. So similarly, hearing about Krishna or hearing from Krishna or hearing Krishna Katha is to be received from only the authorized and bona fide persons. Those who are coming in parampara, in the disciplic succession. They have been authorized by whom? By their spiritual master. And who the spiritual master has been authorized? By his spiritual master. And in this way, if we trace, so where is the authorization coming from? Authorization is coming from Lord Kṛṣṇa himself. This is called the parampara system. So hearing in parampara is very, very powerful way. Why? Prabhupada says here that this is very powerful transcendental method. Transcendental means that which is beyond of this world. Like I said, if you want to lift 100 kg, what you need? You try all your might. I may also try my might. But can we lift 100 kg? That is possible. We won't be able to lift 100 kg. There may be many, many complications in our body. Some of our bones may get fractured or stiff, or there can be many other ailments in our body, but we won't be able to lift 100 kg. But if we have a lift, a lift with a hook, and if we place that lift and the hook on the weight, what will happen? It can easily be lifted. It can easily be lifted. So here Prabhupada is saying that this process of hearing is not ordinary. It is a transcendental method. How it is transcendental? Because it is in relation with Krishna. So hearing has to be in relation to Krishna so that the process is transcendental. So that which is transcendental, that which is divine, that which is spiritual. However difficult it may seem on the material platform, on the spiritual comparison, what is it? It is nothing. It is negligent. So it is the transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. Very beautifully Prabhupada is saying, it is purging the mind. Purging, purging means this, like cleaning, a cleansing of all misgiving, of all the impurities and dirt. That kachara saaf karna. What the mind has stored, it has stored all rubbish, all nonsense, all garbage. All garbage is there. Where the garbage is stored, it is stored in the memory chip of our mind, in the form of so many expressions and so many desires. Like many times you see in your computer you have a virus. And what that virus does, if you want to operate, or even on your mobile phone now, sometimes you face there is virus. So what happens? That the operating system cannot work properly. It cannot function normally. So what do you have to do? You have to download an antivirus, isn't it? If you download an antivirus and if you scan the area which is affected by virus, what happens? The antivirus detects the virus and it kills it. Yes or no? It's a very common practice. Many times we have applied that. So similarly, Prabhupada is saying this is the powerful transcendental method of purging the mind of all misgiving. So removing the virus of the mind. What is the virus of the mind? That I am this body, I am the enjoyer, I am the master, I am the controller. So all these viruses are there. And this virus has remained there for many, many lives. It is not as it is, the new virus which has come up. It keeps coming with new versions. It is very interesting. It keeps coming with new version. But the root of it has remained from many, many past lives. So in this life, if we run the antivirus of Krishna consciousness, what is that? The 9 methods of devotional service, starting from hearing. So what it will do? It will remove the misgivings or misconceptions or all that is rubbish and nonsense like virus. Anyone wants to remain with the virus in his software? No. He wants to terminate it as soon as possible so that the normal functioning can happen. So similarly, here it is mentioned that the mind, which is having all these rubbish impressions, it can be purged by the powerful transcendental method of hearing, like we are hearing now. The more one hears, Prabhupada says further, the more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened. Enlightened means that darkness is removed. Tamso ma jyotirgamaya. That one is in light. Light means one is able to see what is correct and what is incorrect. What is dharma, what is adharma. And detach from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. By detaching the mind from activities not devoted to Lord, one can easily learn vairāgyeṇa. So there are 2 aspects of engaging the mind in the 9-fold devotional activities. And what is the prohibition or the vairāgyeṇa? Is detaching the mind that takes the mind away from Krishna. That is in worldly, in kind of worldliness or in worldly engagements, means material engagements. So we try to remain on the spiritual platform and not try to degrade and come on the material platform. On the material platform, our Krishna consciousness is covered. It is covered by darkness, ignorance, tamas. So by detaching the mind from activities not devoted to the Lord, one can easily learn vairāgya. Vairāgya means detachment from matter and engagement of the mind in spirit. So on a practical level, what we see is that the practitioner is engaged in Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Dasyam, Archunam, Vandanam, Sakhyam, and Atmanivedanam. In all these 9 processes. And it does not allow other material activities to absorb his mind. Impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult. What is impersonal spiritual detachment? That there is no positive attachment. Then attaching the mind to the activities of Krishna. Because the mind cannot remain empty. You have heard? An empty mind is devil's workshop. If you have an empty mind, it will create havoc. So what we have to do, we have to engage the mind positively in this 9-fold processes. This is practical because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. Just by hearing to Krishna, one can become attached. Most of us, if somebody says, have you seen Krishna? We can say, yes, we have seen Krishna. How? Through the hearing process. Through the hearing process. We are hearing from those who have seen Krishna. And they are giving us the process. And by this process, one is coming closer to Krishna and getting detached from Maya, or that which takes one away from Krishna. I'll tell you one practical story about a chronic disease. Most of the people in this world, they have, something which they are very passionate about, or they feel that is what keeps them motivated to continue in life. And most of the time, it seems very strange or weird. I'll tell you an episode of a young couple. A young couple who were well educated and well placed in their profession, both husband and wife. They were working, they were in good positions. And in Mumbai, they came from the coastal area of Konkan. You know Konkan, the coastal belt. And both of them, the husband and wife, they were very, very fond of seafood. Which food? Seafood, And they're very passionate. After coming back from work, this was their passion, that they would try and explore newer and newer places and newer varieties of seafood so that they could enjoy. Some people eat to live, especially those who are yogis. But those who are in the opposite category, they live to eat. And very proudly they say that I am foodie. They want to live life so that they can eat. So these very passionate people about seafood, so they had to, go search for many new locations, new shops, new supermarkets where they could find their stuff. And every day after coming back from their work, they were spending an hour or 2 hours driving down at length. So in their exploration, they came to a locality called Mira Road. And there they found that there were many such shops who were having many varieties of seafood. So they were very happy. They thought that this is the place where we can every day find our required share of stuff. So they decided to relocate. They sold their house in Ville Parle, which is supposed to be a very upmarket or a posh location in Mumbai. and they came to Mira Road so that they can fulfill their passionate desire of having the seafood. And they were very happy once they relocated, because every day, without much struggle, they were having access to enjoy what they wanted. So after a few months, what happened? That the month of Kartik came. And in the locality of Mira Road, there is an ISKCON temple. There is one ISKCON temple. And when they were going to buy their seafood after returning from their office, they heard this very beautiful song, this bhajan of Damodar Ashtakam. And when it entered their ears, it enlivened and engladed their hearts. They became so much attracted that they were actually pulled to step inside. So both of them stepped inside. And in Kartik, in ISKCON, in all the temples, in the evening we offer lamb to Radha and Krishna. So they saw there was a lot of crowd of people, and this nice music, this nice Damodar Ashtakam was being played, and everybody was happily singing and dancing and enjoying, and they were all offering lamb. So when they were inside, so there was a lot of rush, so they were pushed ahead. And when they were pushed ahead, the lamps were being distributed to everyone who came to the temple. So 2 lamps were placed in their hands also. So what to do? They just followed what others were doing. They also offered that lamp to Radha and Krishna. And after offering the lamp, they were so much mesmerized with the music that they remained seated there till the end of the song. And it became, the kirtan ended at 9. So from 7 to 9, they were absorbed in hearing the kirtan. And they were so much satisfied and so much captivated that they forgot everything about their seafood and other things. And when it was 9 o'clock, they thought it is already late. And in ISKCON temple, they get some prasad also. So the devotees gave them prasad. And when they tasted prasad, it was so delicious. They had never tasted anything like that before in their life. So they were very satisfied. So both husband and wife very satisfied. So they returned home and they did not cook anything. They were satisfied. They did not go to the seafood shop. The next day, same thing happened. Next day, same thing happened. A week passed. And in a week's time, they completely forgot everything about their seafood and the varieties and their liking and their passion and their desire and their shifting to Mira Road. Giving up the Ville Parle Bungalow and coming to Mira Road. Why? Because now they got a higher taste engagement. So this is practical. Unless and until we get a spiritual engagement or a higher taste, we cannot give up the lower taste. So here, Prabhupada is recommending, Krishna is recommending, that by this process of hearing, when we hear Krishna Katha, or when we hear Krishna Kirtan, what happens is, through the Katha and Kirtan, through the sound vibration, Krishna enters into our heart. Krishna is already there in the heart. But Krishna enters into our heart, that the covering which is there, which is separating us from Krishna, is removed. That is why Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, it is Cheto Darpan Marjana. It is like removing the dust from the mirror. The mirror is already there. But you cannot see the image on the mirror because the mirror is covered by the dust. So if you remove the dust, you can see your beautiful face. So this hearing process, it removes the layers and layers of contaminated covering that we have of lust, greed, anger, illusion, envy. So all these layers of coverings are removed. So that's why Prabhupada is saying, It is the powerful process of purging the mind of all misgivings. The Prabhupada says here that it is practical because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. So we see all the devotees in Krishna consciousness, how they have become a follower or lover of Krishna by the process of Shravanam and Kirtanam. This attachment is called Parishanubhava. Para Isha Anubhava. This is a Sanskrit word and it can be understood in by the combination. This is a three words combination. Para means which is transcendental. And Isha means which is the controller or the master. So one can experience, one can know that which is transcendental, which is beyond the material realm, that Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can have the anubhav or the experience of Supreme Personality of Godhead. The how? By this powerful process of hearing. Hearing. And one can have spiritual satisfaction. And Prabhupada gives the example of like someone is having food. It is just the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. Like you are very, very hungry and you have been served food. So if you take first chapati, what is the result? That at least some of your hunger is subsidized. And then you take one more, what is the result? Then some other hunger is satisfied. And after taking sufficient 3 or 4, you feel there is no hunger. The more one eats while hungry, the more one feels satisfaction and strength. Similarly, by discharging of devotional service. So when one engages or when one practices these 9 processes, one feels transcendental satisfaction. One feels transcendental satisfaction. That is the satisfaction which is beyond the temporary realm. One feels permanent satisfaction, higher satisfaction, spiritual satisfaction. The mind becomes detached from material objective. So unless and until one has spiritual association or spiritual engagement, one cannot practice vairāgyeṇa. Not possible. So unless and until one is engaged in the process of Krishna consciousness, there is no question of detachment. So detachment actually means detachment from material elements is only possible when one has attachment to spiritual elements. So Prabhupada is clarifying this. So by the process of hearing, what we develop is gradually we are developing attachment to Krishna and persons and things in relation to Krishna. It is something like curing a disease by expert treatment and appropriate time. Hearing the transcendental activities of Lord Kṛṣṇa is therefore expert treatment for the mad mind. And eating the foodstuffs offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness. So 2 things Krishna is recommending is abhyāsena. And abhyāsena in particular, the 9 processes of devotional services. And in particular is the hearing process. The powerful process of hearing Krishna Katha. So what it does, it removes the contamination, the dirt which is there on the mirror of our mind. One moment. Hare Krishna. So this powerful method of hearing is so powerful. I very convincingly remember of one of Srila Prabhupada's disciple, His Holiness Keshav Bharati Maharaj. Maharaj has been in sannyas order for many, many years, more than 20, 30 years. And when Maharaj was in our Delhi temple, he was having some treatment. So Maharaj used to daily hear Srila Prabhupada's lecture 3 times. 3 times, morning, afternoon, evening. And he personally told me that I always feel that I am always with Prabhupada. I am connected to this hearing process. One day Guru Sri Charanarani, at his stage, even our Guru Maharaj, whenever he was doing deity worship, every day he would do deity worship for more than 1 hour. And in that 1 hour when he was doing deity worship, he would ask any one of the devotee available to read from Prabhupada's books so that he can hear. So such is the power of this process of hearing. And second, Prabhupada is saying here is one has to restrict one's eating, prohibition. And what is the restriction? Is not to eat anything which is except prasad. That is, apply these 2 aspects of daily in a regulated way, in a regular way. There is so much glory in this. It says, Shanmatam Swakatha Krishna, Punyashavanam Kirtanam, Vidayantastohi Abhadrani, Vidhunuti Sruhitsatam. So whatever is there inside the heart, which is abhadra. Abhadra means which is inauspicious. What is inauspicious? All this lust and avarice and anger and greed and envy and illusion, all of it, they can be removed. So very, very powerful process of hearing. Very few will take it. Why? Because the mind will control to dictation. And they are so unintelligent, I would say, that they follow slave of their mind. They hear what the mind dictates, but they do not try to hear what Krishna is speaking. So if we somehow hear to what Krishna is speaking, then very easily we'll be able to overcome the mind, because the mind will be controlled by Krishna. By hearing from Krishna, we are requesting Krishna, we are allowing Krishna to control our mind. And invariably Krishna will control it, but he will not control otherwise, unless and until you give him the charge. Hare Krishna. I have to stop here. Somehow we could cover only one verse, but to some extent we discussed what and how the impact will come. Like a chronic disease, the disease which has been there since birth. Many times we see a child which is born with some disability since birth. But many times it happens that the child which is having the disability since birth, he can be cured. How he has to be cured? He has to find the proper doctor, very expert doctor. And by applying his prescription for a long period of time, sustained long period of time, the disease is cured. He recovers. He becomes fit. So Krishna is recommending here the process of abhyasa and vairāgyeṇa. And in abhyasa, the most powerful process of transcendental hearing. Hearing from right source, not hearing from anywhere in a casual way. Hearing from the authorized source, and it is 10 times more effective to hear when it is live, because you connect to the consciousness of the speaker, of the spiritual person who is giving the discourse. You connect to him. That is called yoga. Better to hear on record or on a recorded tape later than not to hear it all. But it's more powerful when you hear live. So what we have to do, we have to discipline our life. We have to regulate our life in such a way that both the abhyāsena and the vairāgyeṇa can be practiced simultaneously. If you do abhyas, vairāgya will come automatically. Vairāgya will be automatic. But if the abhyas is not there, vairāgya can never be. Okay, I stop here. If there is any discussion or question or doubt, so you have to ask.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Thank you for this enlightenment. Prabhuji, just this question previously also I asked, but the hearing is the most powerful process. But how to hear actually, Prabhuji, the correct process, how to hear? Some of the point you told that one should hear live, the live classes, not in a casual way. And rightly you said that, I mean, one has to regulate his life so that he can have this time to hear properly. So more about this, Prabhuji, if you can suggest. Regarding
to
hearing,
hear?
Prabhuji, proper hearing. You told.
You see the, let us,
Let us
echo is there, so please note it. How Arjuna was hearing? Arjuna was hearing on the battlefield. Both the sides, the flanks as the army was arrayed. And Arjuna was about to fight the most difficult battle of his life. Not in terms of the prowess of the opponent, but why? Because in his opposition were his most dear ones. His grandfather Bhishma, his Guru Drona, and so many others, relatives and friends and well-wishers. So how Arjuna was hearing? He was hearing with the rapt attention. We can see the expertise of Arjuna's hearing, that Arjuna immediately inquires on Krishna, whatever topic or whatever subject he speaks. Like we see here, Arjuna is not hearing with disinterest. Arjuna is hearing with utmost interest. Krishna recommends the process of Ashtanga Yoga, and Arjuna immediately says it is impractical. It is unendurable. You give me something else. Why? Because Arjuna knows that this solution is going to come through this speaking of Bhagavad Gita. So every word which Krishna spoke, it entered the heart of Arjuna. And Arjuna immediately applied it. How do we know that Arjuna immediately applied it? Arjuna said, Karishye vachanam tava. I shall do and I shall act as you have recommended. That means no more deliberation of the mind. No more filter of my mind working. On the mental plane, we cannot do hearing. Please understand this very important aspect. On the mental plane, we are hearing, actually, this hearing will not do much good. Because the mind will become active, it will keep filtering of like and dislike. Arjuna did not have the choice. Although Krishna gave the choice. Yatha ichhasi tatha kuru. You do whatever you like. But then Krishna told him that if you do not follow what I tell you, you will be destroyed. And Arjuna, with the conviction in his heart, he agreed that yes, my dear Lord, whatever you have said, Arjuna said, Sarvameta ritanmanne yanmam vadasi keshav. I accept everything as truth, whatever you have said. And there was not even a doubt. One cannot hear with doubt. Doubt will not allow one to hear. Prabhupada says in some of the purports that doubts are like demons. So Arjuna knew that if he did not hear with attention, then he would not be able to take the right decision. So it was do or die situation. But we do not think like that. We think, अरे कोई बात नहीं, रोज तो सुनते हैं, नहीं सुने तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है? सुन भी लिए तो क्या है? हाँ? So we don't take it very seriously or sincerely. And we don't take it with the attitude to apply and apply. Then the hearing does not work. You see the example of Dhritarashtra is also there, na? Arjuna was also hearing Gita. And Dhritarashtra was also hearing. The subject matter is the same. The message is the same. The instruction is the same. One person accepted it and received the benefit. The other person did not accept it. And he was ruined. His entire dynasty was into carnage. So we have to change from the side of Dhritarashtra to come to the side of Arjuna. We should write very sincerely. One way of applying the bind in hearing is to make detailed notes. Not to miss. And after you have written, revise it and share it. If you do that, what will happen? Like, if there is a stone, and on that stone, if you draw some picture by water, what will be the effect? What will be the effect if you draw a picture or a line on the stone by water?
Nothing,
Will it
Prabhuji.
stay? Huh? It will be over. But if you have a chisel, and if you use the chisel and draw the line, even after months you come back, what you will find? That the line exists. Similarly, in our mind, there are millions and millions of impressions coming from our past experiences and desires. In that millions of expression, this spiritual expression that we have is so faint, is like having a water line on the stone. But if you use a chisel, what is that chisel? Is the powerful process of writing, revising, repeating, remembering, and sharing and preaching. So that impression will go deeper. And that impression is deeper, that impression will become the criteria for your decision making in life. You can see that gradually. After practice of, say, sufficiently 5 to 10 years, you can see the change. But if you have all the time made the water line, then there will not be any change. Then there will be no change. We have to hear like Parikshit Maharaj was hearing. How he was hearing? He did not sleep, he did not eat, he did not even have water. We are not told to do that. We are not Parikshit Maharaj. But at least in 1 hour of hearing session that we have, we should be very, very focused and very attentive. That this message is coming for my benefit. And I will not spill it. I will not leave it. Then you see, with every hearing message, there's so much enlivenment. See, I got a response from Dwarka devotees. They have sent me some messages. And this so inspiring. Why? Because some of them were hearing with attention, with heart. So we have to hear with attention. We have to participate with heart. Heartly participation. Heartly participation means that we do not allow the message to spill. It is captured in the heart. Manoram, Prabhu, what is your question?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
A little louder.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Is
Hare
it
Krishna.
audible? Yeah. Prabhuji, two things. One regarding hearing. At the beginning, Prabhuji.
Abhyas. Krishna is saying abhyas. And this hearing, every day the hearing the quality should increase. That is practice. Abhyas. Okay, go ahead.
So in hearing, one part was hearing about the paraphernalias of the Lord Prabhuji. What about that paraphernalias? Hearing about.
Paraphernalia of the Lord. The Lord has so many paraphernalia. His energies are his paraphernalia. His expansions are his paraphernalia. All that which is engaged in Krishna's service is his paraphernalia. So anything and everything which is connected with Krishna is his paraphernalia. That is his paraphernalia. Naam, Roop, Gun, Leela, Dham, and Parikar. That is how the progression is. First, it begins with Naam, name. Then his form. Then his qualities. Then his Leela, pastime. Everyone wants to enter into Krishna's pastime. So how can they enter? They have no taste for chanting his name. They don't want to chant Krishna's name. And they want to enter into Krishna Leela. How is it possible? The same thing. One who is failing in class 10, he wants to be a PhD. How is it possible? Naam, Roop, Gun, Leela, then Dham, and then Parikar. Okay. This is what Srila Rupa Goswami explains in the Nectar of Devotion. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. We'll continue. I'll try every Saturday. And I'll try to be in IARI. Yeah. So don't be disheartened. You try your best. Prabhupada is saying even if one person hears, the mission is successful. But the sincere attempt should be there. The attempt itself is success. Hare Krishna.